Hi, Todd VanDenburg here with VanDenburg Capital Management and another Uncommon Sense update. So as I record this update, we'll go back to Friday. The Dow closed at a record high, 28,004. I know there's a lot of people who thought that would never happen, but it is what it is. New highs are not really something that we get too excited about because if you go back, just a few years, 18,000 was a high, 19,000 was a high, 20,000 was a high. So here we are at 28,000. The markets pulled back a little bit today because of some news that the China, trade deal may not get done before the end of the year. So the market got a little skittish. So we've fallen below 28,000. But that's just normal volatility. It is what it is. Nothing that we're overly concerned about. What I want to talk about today, though, is this concept of perception versus reality. When the election of 2016, the presidential election completed, there were Nobel Prize winning economists who the morning after the election predicted the collapse of the US economy and the stock market. And the Dow was at a little over 18,000, I think about 18,300 on the day after the election. And when we look at it now at 28,000, that's about a 50% move since the day after our last election. And so these predictions didn't really come to reality. And so as I look at these kinds of things, it just makes me wonder, right? There's so often I find that perceptions don't actually match reality. And I'll give you a couple of quick examples having nothing to do with the stock market. One is if you ask a lot of people, hey, so, what kind of a job do you think our public schools are doing? Quite often you hear people grumble about how, our public schools aren't doing a great job. But then when you ask them how their school's doing, they'll go, oh, well, my school's fine. My teachers are engaged. The students are doing athletics, all that kind of stuff, whatever. This is not 100% universally true, but, these are just anecdotal pieces of information. Another one that I find fascinating is you ask people about Congress. So, what do you think of Congress? Is it doing a good job? And when you look at the approval rating of Congress right now, it sits at about 25%, which is shocking. 75 out of 100 people think that Congress is doing a horrible job. But then when you match that with, okay, at what rate do people in Congress get reelected? You see that number is about 80%. So I bring this up because the perception, right? Politicians, our elected officials are doing a crappy job. That's the perception. And maybe it's reality, maybe it's not. But when you look at the data, it says that we keep reelecting the same people. So, there's somewhere, the answer might be somewhere in between 25% and 80%. But this is yet another example of where perceptions don't match reality. So now I'll bring it back to the stock market. Or at least economics. So when you look at something that is a perception piece of data, something that we do look at, but we don't put a lot of weight in, it's called consumer confidence. And consumer confidence since the last presidential election has been all over the place, right? It goes up, it goes down, it's frantic. People are just unnerved and they're not really confident about, the future of our country and the future of the economy and the stock market. They're just uncertain. So that's their feelings, right? You poll somebody, how do you think, what do you think about the future? And they tell you that they're uncertain, they're not confident. But then you balance that against something that is real, tangible, like, okay, so I know how you think, but what are you doing? So then we compare it to consumer spending. And what we see is over the same time period, while people say that they're not certain about the economy and they are concerned that things are going to go to heck in a handbasket, consumer spending just continues to rise and rise, which says that people may think that things are going to heck in a handbasket, but in their own personal lives, they don't seem to be going to heck in a handbasket because they're spending money at the stores at rates that we've never seen before. So I want you to keep this in mind as you're listening to things now, hearing, the media puts information about the next recession, the trade deal's not going to happen, so that's going to collapse our economy. There's just all this doom and gloom. To just remember that there is a disconnect between perception and reality. And the only way that you can really tell about reality is to actually look at real evidence, tangible evidence. Don't just take in, for fact that somebody says, oh, I'll just give you another example. Just a handful of months ago, remember the yield curve inversion? The yield curve inversion predicts a recession. And so, we're headed for a recession. Well, now that the yield curve's not inverted, really nobody talks about it because, they're not trying to yank your chain. It's not bad news, so they're not talking about it. So keep that in mind. We don't use opinions and thoughts and feelings to make investment decisions for our clients, and we don't think investors should do that either. You should look at real, tangible data. A third quarter S&P 500 results are in, and the vast majority of the time, the reality beat expectations. So the experts who predict what earnings are going to be, the lion's share of the time, they got it wrong. So look at real data. Don't rely so much on opinions and thoughts and feelings. And when it comes to investing, you'll do pretty well. So that was your update. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give us a like, give us a share, and I'll be back next week with another Uncommon Sense update. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to be the first to hear of more Uncommon Sense updates like these, please click the subscribe button below. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks again.